Great sunrise, family. Beautiful Sunday morning.
Ona makambwe, ona makambwe, ona makambwe, naina makambwe, unu para kile bajuli balutua, lutua unu wekwe.
My broadcast is messing up on me here. So I'm going to try to, I don't know how all of that stuff happened, but I'm going to do the best we can here. My music turned off too. But welcome, family, welcome. Today we're going to be looking at communist is a Neanderthal code word for allow me to come in, have my white way, abuse the people, control you, but give my people that look like me more privileges over you. This is what communist means. But it has, like religion has been programmed into our people. Language has been programmed into our people. Education, capitalism has been programmed into our people. No matter if capitalism was responsible for killing off all our people, to conquering countries, reasons to go to war, and disenfranchise those who are not Caucasian or those who don't believe in white supremacy. So that's a little background truth into what really communists, people who are against communism is saying. All the while, they will allow a few people to become wealthy only to help make it look like things are equal, things are fair. And it's not. To make it look like you have the freedom to subscribe to be able to climb that mountain and be on top of things. But in all reality, the rich Black folks here in America are controlled, because how are you going to control a country not becoming communist if you're not controlling the wealth? Because communism is simple as me and a group of my neighbors deciding that we're going to take a plot of land and being able to take a plot of land because we don't have this government capitalism. And we're going to grow some luscious food, natural foods, herbs, spices from the ground ourselves, and not worry about being regulated or worried about having to get it through a middleman or someone else, profiting, able to profit off of our needing food. You see, we work together and we're going to grow fresh fruits and vegetables. We decided that it's a better idea, So what they don't want is wealthy people, wealthy Black people, to help their people to do things like that. If they did, then our Black communities people wouldn't be suffering, starving, robbing, killing, stealing from their brothers. This is why the Black community. Hold on. This is the whole reason why many of our communities are suffering because of capitalism, because white folks have control over everything. And when the police comes into our community, they have control. And this control has been able to reflect upon the people's way of life. It has broken up families. A lot of men are not in the home because capitalism does not care about the people. Capitalism says it's a system for white supremacy. And I'm about to tell you a story about how it all was birthed and what it was born from. Okay, so once upon a time, very, 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 very long time ago in ancient history, there was a group of people, we call them the pale men, who came from the caves, and they walked upon a beautiful empire that they didn't know stretched far across the land that they lived on and even further out. And on this land was a whole bunch of people, a whole lots of people, which spread far out as well. Well, they decided that they were going to stand behind a tree and rocks and bushes and watch these people and see what they were doing. They began to become intrigued by these people that so much that they wanted to get closer and closer. And as they got closer and closer, they found themselves on an adventure, traveling far and deep into lands after land after land and after land. Well, these spies, what they saw was people living peacefully. Women well taken care of, children happily playing, and are able to be children. And they saw them, they were dressed in all these beautiful exotic colors and bright clothing that it really, really influenced them to want to come out. So they came out and they met the people. The people were very, very nice and lovely and accepting to all. And they were in awe over the pale men they saw. So the pale men decided that they must go back home, and they went back home to their place where they didn't have very much at all. So what they decided to do, they plotted against the people. They found out how they lived, and they said, this must not be anymore. This must not be anymore because we need it for ourselves. So they went and gathered up and started gathering up other men, pale men. And they hopped on their rides, their horses, and they headed back towards where they came from with this group of this African, beautiful African empire that were peacefully living communally with rules and laws and for the outsiders, of course, because they're people, they had everything. They had everything. The people were well taken care of. There was no need for hierarchy or any of that stuff. They just didn't have it. They just knew they take care of the women and the children. So the Pale Men come back and they ask, can you accept us in? So, like I said, the people are very loving, accepting. So they accept a few in. They allow them to come and live amongst them. And they lived amongst them so that they can find out their weakness within this group of people. So one day, the Pale Men disappeared. The people could not find the Pale Men anywhere in sight. The Pale women or men or children. They came to live amongst them for a short period of time. But they didn't expect them to be gone in the night. So it's like they came and, they stayed a few weeks, we'll say, and then they up and disappeared. So they got enough information to find out the weakness of this group of people. So for a long, long time, they never seen the Pale Men again, but they told stories about living amongst the Pale Men and women and children to their offsprings and to their offsprings. So it was a good experience, right? Meanwhile, the Pale Men raised their children to acknowledge and know the weakness of this group of people. So one night, they were able to take advantage of this group of people that were living like this and began to play psychological games with them. Then, after the psychological games, came the attacks. And came first the stealing of children. They stole their children, kidnapped their children. Then the attacks came. Then they started all full-blown war. Now, this empire would be considered communist because it was hard for the Pale Men to penetrate, no matter how they found out about the weakness. They stole the kids, they did this. They knew they couldn't be successful, and they weren't successful because this is a group of people they would call communists because they weren't going to allow you. They allow you only so much, but when they found out the Pale Men's what their motives were, they stood their grounds and fought back and said, no, we're not going to have that. And they demanded their children back. And they started taking their children, the Pale Men's children. So then the story changed for the empire. They stopped thinking that Pale Men were nice. So the Pale Men had to come up with another way. Oh, let's say that those who do not agree or submit to our will, our ways, that there's something wrong with them, that they're dictators and controllers. But they had to come harder with something more than just that. They couldn't just do that. So they played more psychological games. They made themselves look good, build up the people's trust again. did all kinds of things to penetrate them. Finally, they found a way to penetrate. But it wasn't until like centuries and centuries from the original pale men that went in that they were able, so generation and generation down, it took a while for them to eventually go and get into these people and start separating them out. But they had to work from within. That means they had to, those children that they stole ended up having mixed children. So they were able to take mulattoes and use them to go in to the group of people and mix and mingle. And then, so until they were able to make people that look like them work against them. So that was what was the nail. The hammer hit the needle, hit the nail on the head with getting people that look like them to infiltrate them and influence the people against each other. So that was the fall of free Black folks. That was the end of free Black folks. All because they used us against us. And they're doing the same thing today. Surprisingly, they're able to do the same, but our people don't know, no one really knows communism. Not here in America. Some of us do, some people do. Some people get it. Even the pale people get it, some of them. But you got a whole masses of people who are able to be told whatever by a government that is not worthy of your ears. A government that's not even worthy of our ears. Because that means they can control you, but tell us that it's a free country. So it's like communism can work. Communism is not, it's a broad word. Okay, I'm gonna say that. You got different, people can make communism into whatever they want. For us, it's white supremacy. Not only for us in America, but they're trying to spread white supremacy, which is a form of communist. But then you have communism that can be for everyone. It depends on the mindset, I think, or the people. If it's pale people, Caucasians, then it's going to be white supremacy communists. If it's us, we're going to have communism, but it's going to be community. It's going to be the good of the people. And I'm going to show you this video so you can get what I'm saying. And then we're going to talk about this video as well. So let me share my screen, guys.
Would you ever consider voting for a communist government? Or is it an evil doctrine that should be consigned to the dustbin of history? Ash, I want to start off with you. I've read so much about where you say you're coming from. And I've got to be honest, I still don't get this. What do you call yourself? It's a fully automated luxury communism. What the hell is that?
Okay, all right. So that's something which my colleague Aaron Bassani came up with. So the idea about fully automated luxury communism is that because of automation,
Right.
which Marx calls fixed capital in the Grundrisse, is that workers are becoming more and more expendable. Right, so
Right.
you
So
don't need
machines
human
are
labour as
taking
much
over.
because machines are taking over.
Right.
And what Marx says in the Grundrisse is that this does two things which are contradictory. The first thing is that it makes workers more precarious because you've got more unemployed people, means
Yeah.
you can't agitate for wages and conditions. But on the other hand, it shows you a glimpse of a possible future of a world where human work isn't necessarily, you don't need it in order to generate abundance that we can all benefit from. But
Okay,
what
so
you
if
need
I
is
if I bring this right down to
Yep.
it, you're on the hustings, and I'm saying, what do you stand for?
I'm saying that
You tell me that, and I'm going to go. What? I mean, what are we talking about?
it's a world without scarcity, and it's saying that just because a robot's taken your job, it doesn't mean that you can't feed yourself, you can't feed your family, or you can't home yourself.
But where does the money come from?
So what it's saying is that instead of that money being kept by a few tiny elites, it's distributed amongst the people that generate that value.
So people with money get taxed more. Is that what you're saying?
Well, no, so that's how it is under socialism, right? So, and under social democracy, you would say that maybe universal basic income distributes it.
Right.
What a communist would say, like myself, is that way down the line, I'm a long-term communist, I'm a short-term pragmatist,
Right.
way down the line, maybe the machines that generate that abundance can be communally owned, so by a community and not by a capitalist.
So, for instance, nationalising the railways again.
I mean, that was a socialist demand, not a communist one.
Right. And you really live by that. I mean, somebody else called in or commented before, I used to think that way, but then I got a job and I grew up.
I mean, the thing is that I do have a job. I teach, I am a journalist, I write. I was thinking this way when I was working in a pub. I've worked since I was, 16 years old. I think that in terms of the turn away from neoliberalism, and that's happening whether you call yourself a communist or you call yourself a socialist or a social democrat, you only have to look at some of the statistics. Home ownership 30 years ago for young people, so under the age of 35, was around 60%. Now it's to like 25%.
But what would we get that we haven't already got?
What would we get that you've not already got? It's control over your own life.
Carol?
Yeah, I'm listening to it, and I think you're a very clever young woman. However, when I hear you talk about luxury communism, I want to scream, because you're trivializing something that that has killed millions of people since 1917. 110 million people have been killed in the name under communist regimes. 45 million people under Mao Zedong. 20 million slaughtered on.
You see, Caucasians, they do not want you to be communist. They do not want you to go back to their ways of life. They want to control your food. It's all for the Caucasians, white skin, pale skin only. They're communist. They're communist. Because why do they control our music industry? They make money off of our people. Right now, we don't have media. We don't have hospitals. We don't have businesses. The businesses we have are not enough to sustain us in our own society. If it was, then we would be overriding their businesses right now. We don't have that. Right now we're majority shopping at their grocery stores that came about like Kroger's from slavery. It crushed me when I found out about Kroger's. And I'm, because as a kid, my grandmother would shop there. But they got their wealth from slavery. And it's a Jewish grocery store. That's been around for a long, long time. Do you know any Black grocery stores like that? It's proof that white people have been communists all this time. But they're against anybody else doing communism because they want full control over everything. And they want it where Black people do not have anything. You be last on the totem pole, be poor and not have anything. And this is the way they want it. That's the way they want it. And this is why the woman argues so hard and tries to say that she's lying. She can't see. You see, Caucasian logic, they can't see themselves. So they have to talk about things that they lie about. Like they lie about people dying on the communist regime. No, they're fighting. People are fighting for what they want. The only communist is white supremacy. That's the only communist in the planet. The only communists in the planet. And they play their hands all around the planet. They play their hands all around the planet.
Under Ho Chi Minh, 9 million killed under Stalin, and you're trivializing this. Communism is a murderous regime. I mean, and you can't. It's like saying let's trivialize Nazism. Let's have fun with Nazism. Let's have luxury Nazism.
No.
It can't. Let's just let me finish.
There is a huge difference
because she has to blend everything, but she doesn't want to talk about slavery or talk about the people, them conquering. They don't want to talk about them conquering and enslaving people, and then all in the name of capitalism and their white control.
Let me finish. We've heard what you've just said, Ashley. Let somebody else have a word in this. Communism has never worked. Real communism has never worked in any country in which it's been applied. And look at what it is. It is one despot with absolute power.
They cannot have it. They cannot have it, because then that means that everybody's practicing communism.
Ruling over people who have none.
Jamie, you wanted to. Jamie was trying to jump in.
I want to respond to both, if that's okay. Firstly, with regards to what you've just said, Cara, I think looking at communism killing people, I completely agree with you. Having done my research, but also capitalism is also responsible for millions.
No, that's such an old.
No, it's not.
Communism has killed more people than capitalism in the last.
I don't think.
No.
But hang on. Before we get into an argument about which idealism has killed the most people.
My other problem with communism is incentivism. Mm-hmm. Why am I going to train as a neurosurgeon when I'm going to get paid the same as someone doing data input into a computer? Sort of, more menial job every day. What is that? That I think every successful society requires a degree of incentivism. And if you're saying
that's what capitalism does,
you're saying essentially that it's community.
That's not true, because a lot of people should have gotten a lot of things, but they didn't because of their skin color. They weren't the right skin color. They might have worked harder and had to work twice as harder, and they've been more productive than that Caucasian counterpart. But the Caucasian counterpart was able to do whatever the hell they wanted to do, and they got it anyways.
Before individualism, which will then free us, but actually then you have censorship, and then you have all these other things, which is a whole different kettle of fish. But it's problematic for me.
I agree completely with you in your critique, right? And there are different kinds of communism, and this is where I really differ from you. I abhor.
There aren't actually.
Let's hear it.
I mean, there is. I mean, you can say that the only communism is that of Stalin, but then you're erasing thinkers like Bifo. You're erasing thinkers like
talking about
Rosa
reality.
Luxemburg.
Just hold on a minute, Ash. The reality of communism. All we know,
wait, hang on. Before we go off onto that, Ash, you were starting to say there are different types of communism.
There are different.
I still don't understand what luxury. Call me thick. I don't understand what you mean about luxury communism. All I think about is George Orwell in Animal Farm saying all animals are equal, except some are more equal than others. Is that the luxury?
Luxury communism is like, do you remember Joe Strummer from The Clash? She said that I don't believe in the kind of communism where everyone's wearing overalls. It's when everyone's got Cadillacs.
We all wear Gucci.
Oh, we all wear Gucci. We're great. What it's saying is that
this is naive nonsense.
Wait,
okay,
Vicky, if you give me a second, I think what's naive nonsense.
It's never worked. Hang on, Vicky, what do you think?
It's never worked, communism. You'll always have the dictator, the one that will be in charge. Who's going to organise all this?
Yes,
Who's going to be in control of all this? Who's going to make sure
that everyone... This is why I'm a libertarian communist. And you had this in Catalonia before Franco smashed the anarcho-syndicalist organisation of workers there. You do have different forms of communism in other parts of the world.
And it's not worked out.
But it's not worked. Even in Venezuela.
The only legacy...
It hasn't worked because of Caucasians, because of their mindset of white supremacy all over the planet. When they saw the vast Black people living peacefully and living as a community and taking care of everything, not having any kind of criminal crimes or anything going on, because everyone was under the same mindset of they understood that of life. They understood life. And life was their religion. It wasn't anything man-made or controlling or anything like that. It was just you knew your principles, the ma'at, balance with our nature, take care of nature, stay in connection with that nature, that you weren't going to lower yourself down to the animals you lived around and mistreat others because things come back.
Let me say so that the only
totalitarianism,
legacy,
just as you do.
the only legacy that anyone talks about in communism is murder, torture, poverty, elitism, and greed.
All right,
Which
that's all we
exists
know.
under capitalism as
That's because, like the story I told you, the white man that spread, he was able to keep us occupied with fighting each other while he took over the land. And then he came back and fed people religion, lies, to make the people forget about their anger and not pick up the sword and fight them back.
Just hold on a minute. Storm's got some remarks.
got plenty of calls on this one. So we're going to start with Liz from Leeds.
Liz?
Hello, Tricia. Good morning.
What do you want to say?
I'd first like to extend my solidarity to Ash, who is trying to explain things intellectually. Communism is a human society. It's where we take care of each other. We're not divided by racism, sexism, misogyny, homophobia. The profit motive no longer rules over us, and we actually establish production on the basis of human need. Okay. It's very, very simple. Now, when Carol talks about the USSR and China and what have you, they were not communist countries. They were counter-revolutionary, totalitarian dictatorships.
Tell me where this communism you're talking about works, Liz. Tell me where it's happening now.
Will you excuse me, Carol? I watched you on Sky News
I'm just asking you a question. Hang on.
That there was no racism, and she's a black woman, so please allow me to finish. There are no communist countries or societies in the world. The Bolshevik Revolution was smashed to pieces by 14 foreign armies from Britain, Germany to Japan. That is why that failed. Stalin was a counter-revolutionary, totalitarian dictator.
Okay, Liz,
now, you can't vote communism in. You build communism through our collective human struggle.
I'm going to ask you to hold it there, Liz, only because we're going to run out of time. Quick reply from Carol, and then we've got other
I just asked her where communism works today. It's not working in any country.
All
right. That was good. I left a little message for the people that did this video, that I wish they didn't cut off, because that discussion was just getting heated and we could learn so much more from it. But I'm going to do my research and find out that show, and try to look it up myself and find it. And if I can find the rest of it, I'll play it. But that's how I feel about everything in a nutshell, family. Thank you for joining me, Jacob Mupian, Mr. Pirate Brain, DOD. Thank you all. And those in the cloud, just remember, just always remember, true love, real peace, the higher self within you, the soul, and have a beautiful Sunday. And I'll see you in a few hours for the discussion on Hollywood and how they contribute to the degradation, sexual degradation of our society and us as a people. It's part of the white supremacy control mechanism. So with that said, peace, family. Until next time.